I couldn't believe my own ears as I stood in the hallway, frozen. My hands trembled as I gripped the bouquet of flowers I had brought for my parents' 40th wedding anniversary. The voices drifting out from the study were unmistakable, my brother Elliot's and the distinct sound of betrayal. Can you believe they're that stupid? I've been skimming from their retirement account for months and they haven't noticed a thing. Elliot's voice dripped with arrogance. Once I have enough put aside, I'm out of this dead-end town for good. My heart sank as the realization hit me. Elliot, my own flesh and blood, had been stealing from our parents, the very people who had sacrificed everything to give us the life we have. I felt a surge of anger rise within me, threatening to boil over. Composing myself, I took a deep breath and strode into the study, cutting off Elliot's call. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" I demanded, my voice quivering with barely contained rage. Elliot whirled around, his eyes widening in panic. "Lena, I didn't hear you come in." He stammered, his usual cocky demeanor replaced by a nervous fidgeting. "Don't give me that," I snapped. "I heard everything. How could you do this to Mom and Dad?" He opened his mouth to speak, but I cut him off. "Don't even try to deny it. I know you've been stealing from their retirement account." I held up a hand, silencing his feeble attempt at an excuse. "Do you have any idea how hard they've worked their entire lives to build that nest egg? And you just waltz in and take it for your own selfish desires?" Elliot's face flushed with guilt, but he quickly tried to regain his composure. "Look, Lena, it's not what it seems. I was just—" "Save it," I interrupted, my voice dripping with disgust. "I don't want to hear your pathetic excuses. You've betrayed our family, and I won't stand for it." He stared at me, his bravado crumbling. "Please, Lena, you can't tell Mom and Dad. They'll disown me. I need that money." I shook my head, my resolve hardening. "That's not my problem, Elliot. You did this to yourself. Now you have to face the consequences." "Lena, please," he pleaded, his eyes desperately searching mine. "I'll pay it back, I swear. Just give me some time." I crossed my arms, unwavering. "Time? You've had plenty of time, and you've only taken more. No, Elliot, this ends now." He opened his mouth to argue, but I held up a hand. "I'm going to tell Mom and Dad everything. They deserve to know the truth." Elliot's face contorted with fear and anger. "You can't do this to me, Lena. You have no idea what I'm going through. I need that money." "That's too bad," I said, my voice steady and unyielding. "You should have thought about that before betraying our family." With that, I turned on my heel and headed towards the living room, where my parents were waiting to celebrate their anniversary. The weight of what I was about to do settled heavily on my shoulders, but I knew I had no choice. I had to protect my family, even if it meant tearing it apart in the process. I found my parents in the living room, chatting excitedly about their upcoming anniversary party. Their faces lit up when they saw me, and I felt a pang of guilt for what I was about to do. "Lena, honey, we're so glad you made it." Mom pulled me into a warm embrace, and I savored the familiar comfort of her arms. "We've missed you." "I've missed you too, Mom." I managed a small smile, steeling myself for the confrontation to come. Dad came over and gave me a hearty pat on the back. "Where's your brother? I thought he'd be here by now." I took a deep breath. "That's actually what I need to talk to you both about." Mom's brow furrowed with concern. "Is everything all right, dear?" "No, Mom, I'm afraid it's not." I turned to face them, my expression grave. "I overheard Elliot on the phone earlier. He's been stealing money from your retirement account." The words hung in the air, and I watched as the color drained from their faces. Mom's hand flew to her mouth, stifling a gasp, while Dad's jaw tightened, his eyes narrowing in disbelief. "What are you saying, Lena?" Dad's voice was low, laced with a warning. "I'm saying that Elliot has been embezzling from your savings. I heard him bragging about it on the phone." I steeled myself, bracing for their reaction. Mom shook her head vehemently. "No, that can't be true. Our son would never do such a thing." Dad placed a hand on her shoulder, his face hardening. "Lena, are you sure about this?" I nodded, my heart aching at the pain etched on their faces. "I'm positive, Dad. I heard him with my own ears." At that moment, Elliot strode into the room, his usual cocky demeanor in place. "Hey, what's going on?" he asked, oblivious to the tension. I stepped forward, pointing an accusing finger at him. "You know damn well what's going on, Elliot. I heard you on the phone bragging about stealing from Mom and Dad's retirement fund." Elliot's eyes widened, and for a moment the mask of confidence slipped. "What? That's not true. I would never." "Don't even try to deny it," I snapped, cutting him off. "I have the evidence, Elliot, the bank statements, the receipts, the emails. You've been siphoning money from their account for months. Mom let out a shaky sob, her hands trembling. Elliot, how could you? Elliot's gaze flitted between us, his bravado crumbling. Mom, Dad, I swear, this is all a misunderstanding. Lena's got it all wrong. Dad stepped forward, his voice laced with a rare fury. Misunderstanding? So you're telling me that Lena is lying? Elliot opened his mouth, but no words came out. He glanced around, desperately searching for a way out, but finding none. That's what I thought, Dad said, his voice dripping with disgust. I think it's time you told us the truth, son. Elliot's face contorted with a mix of fear and anger. All right, fine. I did it, okay? I took the money, but I had no choice. Mom's eyes widened and she let out a strangled cry. How could you do this to us, Elliot? After everything we've done for you? I needed the money, Elliot shouted, his desperation palpable. My gambling debts were spiraling out of control, and I had to do something to pay them off. Dad's face flushed with rage. Gambling debts? So you betrayed our trust and stole from your own parents to feed your addiction? Elliot's shoulders slumped, his bravado finally collapsing. I'm sorry, okay? I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. I shook my head, my heart heavy with a mix of disappointment and anger. Sorry doesn't cut it, Elliot. You've destroyed our family's trust. I won't let you get away with this. The room fell silent, the weight of Elliot's betrayal pressing down on us all. I couldn't help but wonder how we had ended up here, and what the consequences of his actions would be. After the confrontation with Elliot, I knew I couldn't rely on him to come clean or make amends. I had to take matters into my own hands and gather the evidence needed to prove his betrayal beyond a doubt. The next day, I called my old friend Max, a private investigator I had worked with in the past. I explained the situation to him, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and determination. Max, I need your help. Elliot has been stealing from my parents' retirement account, and I need to gather enough evidence to confront him and my parents. Max's brow furrowed with concern. Lena, that's a serious accusation. Are you sure about this? I heard him myself, Max. He was bragging about it on the phone. I paused, taking a steadying breath. I can't just sit back and let him get away with this. My parents have worked so hard their entire lives to build that nest egg, and he's just taking it for his own selfish reasons. Max was silent for a moment, considering the gravity of the situation. All right, Lena, what do you need me to do? I need you to dig into Elliot's financial records, his bank statements, anything that can corroborate what I heard. We need to uncover the full extent of his betrayal. Consider it done, Max said, his voice resolute. I'll get started on it right away. Just send me whatever information you have and I'll see what I can find. I thanked him and hung up, my mind racing with the implications of what I was about to do. This wasn't just about protecting my parents' money, it was about preserving the integrity of our family. Elliot had shattered that trust, and I knew that exposing his actions would have devastating consequences. Over the next few days, I gathered all the relevant documents and receipts I could find, meticulously organizing them to build a solid case against Elliot. I avoided confronting him directly, knowing that he would only deny and deflect. Instead, I focused on gathering the evidence that would ultimately be his undoing. Finally, Max called with his findings. Lena, you were right. Elliot has been systematically transferring funds from your parents' account into his own for the past several months. The total amount he's stolen is over $150,000. I felt my stomach drop. Oh my God, that much? I shook my head in disbelief. My parents have been working towards a comfortable retirement for decades, and he just took it all. I'm sorry, Lena, Max said, his voice laced with empathy. This is going to be a tough one, but I've got everything we need to prove what he's done. Thank you, Max, I said, my resolve hardening. Now it's time to confront him and my parents. I need to make sure they know the full extent of his betrayal. Max offered to accompany me, but I insisted on doing this alone. This was a family matter, and I needed to be the one to deliver the news. As I made my way back to my parents' house, the weight of the evidence I carried felt heavier with each step. I knew that once I presented it to them, our family would never be the same. But I also knew that I couldn't let Elliot's actions go unchecked. It was time for him to face the consequences of his betrayal. As I entered my parents' house, I felt a familiar sense of unease settle in the pit of my stomach. I knew that what I was about to do would irrevocably change the dynamics of our family, but I had no choice. Elliot's betrayal had to be brought to light. I found my parents in the living room, nervously waiting for me. The air was thick with tension, and I could see the worry etched on their faces. "Lena, honey, what's going on?" Mom asked, her voice trembling. "Is everything all right?" I took a deep breath and sat down across from them, the stack of evidence in my lap. "Mom, Dad, I'm afraid it's not. I've gathered some information about Elliot's actions, and it's not good." Dad's brow furrowed, and he leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "What are you talking about, Lena?" I steeled myself, knowing that the next few moments would be devastating. "I've been doing some digging, and I've uncovered proof that Elliot has been stealing from your retirement account." The room fell silent, the only sound being Mom's sharp intake of breath. I watched as the color drained from their faces, and a look of horror and betrayal replaced their expressions. "That can't be true," Mom whispered, her voice laced with disbelief. "Our own son." I nodded solemnly, placing the stack of documents on the coffee table. "I'm afraid it is, Mom. I have bank statements, receipts, and emails that all point to Elliot embezzling a substantial amount of money from your savings." Dad's hands clenched into fists, his knuckles turning white. "How could he do this to us, after everything we've done for him?" Before I could respond, Elliot burst into the room, his face flushed with anger. "What the hell is going on here?" he demanded, his gaze darting between my parents and the evidence on the table. I stood up, my voice steady and unwavering. "We're having a family meeting, Elliot. It's time to come clean about what you've been doing." Elliot's eyes widened, and he shook his head vehemently. "I don't know what you're talking about, Lena. This is all a misunderstanding." "Don't give me that, Elliot," I snapped, cutting him off. "I have the proof right here. You've been stealing from Mom and Dad's retirement account for months, and we all know it." Mom let out a strangled sob, and Dad reached out to comfort her, his own eyes glistening with unshed tears. "It's true, isn't it, Elliot?" Dad's voice was low and trembling with a barely contained rage. "You've been betraying our trust and taking our hard-earned money for your own selfish reasons." Elliot's gaze darted around the room, his bravado crumbling. I don't know what to say. I didn't mean for it to go this far." "Didn't mean for it to go this far?" I scoffed, my anger boiling over. "You've stolen over $150,000 from them, Elliot. How could you do this to your own family?" Elliot's face contorted with a mix of fear and desperation. "I needed the money, okay? My gambling debts were piling up, and I had no other choice." Dad's eyes widened, and he rose from his seat, his entire body trembling with rage. "Gambling debts? So you betrayed us to feed your addiction?" Elliot opened his mouth to speak, but Dad cut him off, his voice laced with a barely contained fury. "Get out of this house, Elliot. I don't ever want to see your face again." Mom let out a heartbroken cry, burying her face in her hands. I felt my own heart shatter, watching the pain and betrayal etched on my parents' faces. The room fell silent, save for Mom's muffled sobs. I knew that our family would never be the same after this, and I couldn't help but wonder if we would ever be able to heal the wounds that Elliot had inflicted. The aftermath of our family meeting was nothing short of devastating. My parents were devastated, their trust shattered by Elliot's betrayal. Mom had locked herself in her room, her sobs echoing through the house, while Dad paced the living room, his fists clenched in anger. As for Elliot, he had been ordered to leave, his protests falling on deaf ears. I knew that the confrontation had taken a toll on him as well, but in that moment I felt no sympathy. He had brought this upon himself, and now he had to face the consequences. A few days later, Elliot showed up at my doorstep, his expression a mix of desperation and defiance. "Lena, we need to talk," he said, his voice strained. I crossed my arms, my gaze unwavering. "I'm listening." "Look, I know what I did was wrong, okay?" He ran a hand through his hair, his frustration palpable. "But you have to understand, I was backed into a corner. I needed that money to pay off my debts." "Spare me the excuses, Elliot," I snapped. "You betrayed our family for your own selfish reasons, and now you have to face the consequences." "Please, Lena," he pleaded, his eyes desperate. "I'm begging you, don't turn me in. I'll do anything to make this right." I shook my head, my resolve firm. "It's too late for that, Elliot. You've already done too much damage." "I'll pay it back, I swear," he exclaimed, his voice rising in desperation. "Just give me some time, and I'll return every single penny." I scoffed, my patience wearing thin. "And how exactly do you plan to do that, Elliot? From what I know, your gambling debts have put you in a financial hole that you can't possibly dig yourself out of." Elliot's face twisted with frustration. "I'll figure something out, okay? Just please, Lena, don't tell Mom and Dad. That's not going to happen, Elliot, I said, my voice steady. They deserve to know the truth, and you need to face the consequences of your actions. Consequences? He laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. You have no idea what kind of consequences I'm facing, Lena. If word gets out about this, I'll lose everything, my job, my apartment, my entire life. I felt a twinge of pity for him, but I quickly pushed it aside. That's not my problem, Elliot. You made your choice, and now you have to live with it. Lena, please, he begged, his eyes pleading with me. I'm begging you, don't do this to me. I'll do anything, just name your price. I shook my head, my resolve unwavering. There's no price, Elliot. This isn't about money, it's about trust and integrity. You've betrayed our family, and that's not something that can be bought. Elliot's face fell, and for a moment I saw a glimmer of true remorse in his eyes. So what happens now? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I was about to say. You have two choices, Elliot. Either you return every single penny you've stolen and seek help for your gambling addiction, or I'll have no choice but to turn you in to the authorities. Elliot's eyes widened, and he shook his head frantically. You can't be serious, Lena. That's not an option. It is now, I said, my voice firm. You've put us all through enough, Elliot. It's time for you to make amends or face the consequences of your actions. Elliot stared at me, his face a mask of despair. I knew that I was asking a lot of him, but after everything he had done, I couldn't bring myself to offer him any other choice. The silence stretched on, and I could see the wheels turning in Elliot's mind as he weighed his options. Finally, he let out a defeated sigh. All right, Lena, I'll do it. I'll pay back every last penny and I'll get help for my addiction. I nodded, relief and a twinge of sadness washing over me. Good. I hope you mean that, Elliot, because if you don't, there will be no turning back. With that, I closed the door, leaving Elliot to grapple with the weight of his choices. I knew that the road ahead would be a long and difficult one, but I was determined to see it through, no matter the cost. In the weeks that followed our confrontation, Elliot's situation quickly spiraled out of control. As he struggled to come up with the money to repay our parents, his creditors began to close in, demanding the payment of his outstanding gambling debts. I watched from a distance as Elliot's desperation grew, his once confident demeanor replaced by a nervous, erratic behavior. He would show up at our parents' house unannounced, pleading with them to reconsider their decision, but they remained steadfast in their refusal to forgive him. One day, as I was running errands, I ran into Elliot on the street. His appearance was disheveled and his eyes were wild with a mixture of fear and fury. Lena, thank God I found you, he said, his voice trembling. You have to help me. I'm in serious trouble. I regarded him with a wary expression, crossing my arms. What's going on, Elliot? My creditors. They're closing in on me, he said, his words spilling out in a frantic rush. They're threatening to ruin me, Lena. I need that money from Mom and Dad, and I need it now. I shook my head, my resolve unwavering. I told you, Elliot, the only way to make this right is to pay back every single penny you stole and get help for your addiction. But I don't have that kind of money, Lena, he exclaimed, his voice rising in desperation. I'm barely scraping by as it is. If I don't come up with something soon, they're going to destroy me. That's not my problem, Elliot, I said, my tone firm. You brought this on yourself. I won't help you cover up your betrayal any longer. His face contorted with rage, and he grabbed my arm, his grip tight and unyielding. You have to help me, Lena. I'm your brother, for God's sake. You can't just let them destroy me. I wrenched my arm free, glaring at him with a mixture of disgust and pity. I'm sorry, Elliot, but I can't help you. You made your choice, and now you have to live with the consequences. With that, I turned and walked away, ignoring his desperate pleas. As I made my way home, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of guilt, but I knew that I had to remain steadfast. Elliot had brought this upon himself, and I couldn't allow him to drag our family down with him. A few days later, the situation escalated even further. I was at work when I received a frantic call from my parents, their voices trembling with fear and anger. Lena, you have to come home right away, my mother said, her words rushed and panicked. Elliot, he's making a scene at the house, and we don't know what to do. My heart sank, and I didn't hesitate to rush home. When I arrived, the scene that greeted me was nothing short of chaotic. Elliot was standing in the middle of the living room, his face a mask of pure desperation. He was shouting at our parents, his words laced with venom and accusation. You two have ruined everything, he yelled, his fists clenched at his sides. If it wasn't for you and your holier-than-thou attitudes, I wouldn't be in this mess. Mom was huddled on the couch, her face streaked with tears, while Dad stood in front of her, his expression a mix of fear and fury. Elliot, calm down and listen to reason, Dad said, his voice low and steady, but I could hear the underlying tremor. Reason, Elliot scoffed, his eyes wild. There is no reason here, only your stupid, selfish demands. You two have never understood me, and now you're going to pay for it. I stepped forward, my own anger rising to the surface. Elliot, stop this right now. You're only making things worse. He whirled around, his gaze locking onto mine. Worse? Lena, you have no idea how bad things are. If I don't come up with the money, they're going to ruin me, and it's all your fault. I felt a chill run down my spine at the sheer desperation in his voice. Elliot, this isn't about me or our parents. This is about the choices you made and the consequences you have to face. Consequences? He spat, his voice dripping with venom. You have no idea what consequences I'm facing, Lena. If I don't find a way to pay off my debts, they're going to destroy me, and I'm not going down alone. Before I could react, Elliot lunged forward, his hands outstretched towards our parents. I felt a surge of panic, and without thinking, I stepped in front of them, shielding them from his attack. The room erupted into chaos, with my parents' cries of fear and Elliot's desperate shouts filling the air. In the midst of the commotion, I knew that our family had been irrevocably torn apart, and the consequences of Elliot's actions were only just beginning to unfold. In the aftermath of Elliot's outburst, our family was left shaken and traumatized. Mom and Dad were distraught, their trust in their own son completely shattered. As for Elliot, he had retreated, realizing that his desperate attempt to manipulate the situation had only pushed us further away. I knew that something had to be done, not just to protect my parents, but to ensure that Elliot faced the full consequences of his actions. I couldn't allow him to continue evading responsibility, and I was determined to put an end to his deceit once and for all. That's when I turned to my friend Max for help. I explained the situation to him, detailing the escalating confrontations and Elliot's growing desperation. I need to find a way to get the stolen money back, Max, I told him, my voice laced with determination. And I need to do it in a way that ensures Elliot can't wriggle his way out of it. Max listened intently, his brow furrowed in thought. Well, it sounds like Elliot is backed into a corner. His creditors are closing in, and he's running out of options. I nodded, a plan already forming in my mind. Exactly, and that's exactly what we're going to use against him. Over the next few weeks, Max and I worked tirelessly, meticulously crafting a scheme that would lure Elliot in and trap him once and for all. We created a fake investment opportunity, one that would appeal to his desperation and greed. This has to be airtight, Max, I said as we finalized the details. Elliot is cunning, and he won't fall for just any trap. Don't worry, Lena, Max reassured me. I've covered every angle. This is going to work. The day finally came when we put our plan into motion. I reached out to Elliot, painting a picture of a lucrative investment opportunity that could solve all of his problems. Elliot, I think I've found a way for you to get the money you need, I told him, my voice laced with false optimism. He was immediately intrigued, his eyes widening with a glimmer of hope. What are you talking about, Lena? It's a private investment opportunity, I explained, one that could net you a significant return in a short amount of time. Elliot's brow furrowed, his skepticism apparent. And why would you be helping me, Lena, after everything that's happened? I offered him a measured shrug. Call it a change of heart. I know how desperate you are, and I want to help you make things right. He studied me for a moment, his eyes narrowed, but the temptation was clearly too strong to resist. All right, Lena, I'm listening. Over the next few days, we meticulously guided Elliot through the investment process, feeding him just enough information to keep him hooked. He was desperate, and his greed blinded him to the obvious red flags. Finally, the day of the investment arrived. Elliot showed up at the designated location, a stack of cash in hand, ready to seal the deal. But as he handed over the money, the doors burst open, and a team of police officers swarmed the room, swiftly apprehending him. Elliot's face contorted with shock and terror as the reality of the situation dawned on him. What is this, Lena? What have you done? I stepped forward, my expression cold and unyielding. What I should have done a long time ago, Elliot. You're under arrest for theft, fraud, and embezzlement. As the officers led a bewildered and defeated Elliot away, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. Justice had been served, and my parents' hard-earned savings had been reclaimed. It was a bittersweet victory, however, as I knew that the damage to our family would not be easily repaired. But in that moment, I knew that I had done what was necessary to protect my parents and hold Elliot accountable for his actions. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but I was determined to see it through, no matter the cost. In the aftermath of Elliot's arrest, our family was left to pick up the pieces. The betrayal and heartbreak he had inflicted upon us was a wound that would take time to heal, if it ever did. As I sat with my parents in the living room, the silence between us was palpable. Mom's eyes were red from crying, while Dad stared ahead, his brow furrowed in a mix of anger and disappointment. "I just can't believe it, Lena," Mom finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "How could he do this to us?" I reached out and squeezed her hand, trying to offer some comfort. "I know, Mom. It's not something any of us could have ever imagined." Dad shook his head, a heavy sigh escaping his lips. "We trusted him, Lena. We gave him everything, and he threw it all away." I nodded, my heart aching for the pain my parents were feeling. "I'm so sorry, Dad. I wish I could have done more to stop him before it got to this point." "No, honey," Mom said, her hand grasping mine tightly. "You did the right thing. We're grateful you were able to uncover the truth and protect what we've worked so hard for." I felt a bittersweet sense of relief at her words, but I knew the road ahead would not be an easy one. "What happens now?" I asked, my gaze shifting between them. Dad let out a heavy sigh. "Well, Elliot will have to face the consequences of his actions. The authorities have informed us that he's been charged with theft, fraud, and embezzlement." I winced, the gravity of the situation sinking in. "And after that?" "We're not sure yet," Mom admitted, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "We've been informed that he'll have the option to enter a rehabilitation program for his gambling addiction, but beyond that, it's all up to him." I nodded, understanding the implication. "And what about our family?" Dad reached out and placed a hand on my shoulder, his eyes conveying a mix of sorrow and resolve. "We'll take it one day at a time, Lena. This has been a betrayal like no other, and it will take time for us to heal. But we're still a family, and we'll get through this together." I felt a lump form in my throat, and I couldn't help but pull both my parents into a tight embrace. In that moment, I was reminded of the unbreakable bonds that tied us together, and the strength we would need to overcome this ordeal. As the days turned into weeks, Elliot's case slowly made its way through the legal system. While he initially fought the charges, he eventually realized the futility of his efforts and agreed to a plea bargain. In exchange for a reduced sentence, he would be required to repay the full amount he had stolen from our parents' retirement account and seek treatment for his gambling addiction. It was a bittersweet victory, but one that offered a glimmer of hope for the future. With Elliot's cooperation, our parents were able to recoup the majority of their savings, and they even agreed to support his rehabilitation efforts, hoping that it would be the first step towards rebuilding the trust that had been shattered. As for our family, the healing process was slow and arduous. There were moments of tension and resentment, but also moments of forgiveness and understanding. We knew that the path ahead would not be an easy one, but we were determined to weather the storm together and emerge stronger than ever before. In the end, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride in the resilience of my family. We had been through the unthinkable, and yet we had found the strength to overcome it. It was a testament to the power of love and the belief that no matter how dark the night, the dawn would always break.